Good afternoon, dear students. Can you hear me? Tulanjali, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I hope that we can start now, and because today we have our faculty board at 2 p.m. So I am going to lecture at 2 before 2. Anyway, I think this is very important lecture series, and normally this lecture series is conducted by myself and Dr. Amali. But since she's in sabbatical leave, in maternity leave, I am going to complete this lecture series. There are two parts in this lecture: food safety and legislation management. So this is very important, and you all have to study. You all have to listen carefully, and you all have to do your homework to and engage with me to complete this lecture successfully, because this is very practical one. If you go to industry, or if you go to start your own business, then it is very important to know what is food science, food safety. So can you hear me? Any problem? Hello, do you have any problem?
No, sir.
Right, well, so I think there are around 18 people. Others will join, and the weather is not good today also, so others sometimes they can't join. So anyway, we'll share the lecture in LMS. So what is food safety? And you know what is food? Uh, so there are different food varieties are available, and different producers are also available. So, so first of all, I will explain why food safety is important, and I will cover my area, food legislation management first. Then I will start food safety management. So this is somewhat very good and very important one. And also the time is not good, but after lunch is very bad time. So I will try to do my best, and you also can talk. So I think we have 2 hour lecture. Normally I do for around one and a half maximum. So most probably I will do around 1 hour lecture, because I know 2 hours are it's very difficult to listen. So what you have to do is, I am not going to read all the slides and explain all the slides. So you have to read these things and understand. So I will explain the important things, and the things are not available in the slide. So you know, food safety is very important, because they are big topics. You know, they are very important issues, very critical issues in the country. Can you give me example for that food safety issues reported in Sri Lanka? Can you remember that one? Can you remember aflatoxin detection in coconut oil before 2 months ago? It is also belongs to food safety. So if you can find my last year question paper, you can see the question regarding the aflatoxin detection. So how that case? So we all know there is a case, there is an issue regarding the aflatoxin. So how to manage it? So do we have a management system for that one or not? So how to inform, how it works? Likewise, we are going to discuss all these things under this module. Okay. Here you can see LOS, learning outcomes. After completion of this module, you can understand the concepts and food laws and legal background. You can understand, and what are the common food laws and regulation available in Sri Lanka, and issues. What type of legal issues are available and how to handle those things and how to report those things. We are going to discuss these things. And especially, this is very important, the last one, basic skills to conduct legal research activities and writing skills in the food industry. So, you are a food technologist, your dream, sometimes your dream to be a food technologist or maybe a lecturer, maybe a doctor, maybe a doctor means a PhD holder, and maybe you may start your own industry, your own business. So for that, for all these things, this type of legal activities and legal studying of legal background is very important. And basically, you have continuous assessments and exam. So I don't know, still I don't know how it happens since this COVID situation. So if not, you will give 30 and 70 marks, but still I can't say the exact percentages. And also you will have 4 assignments in this lecture series. The first one is to write a brief report on Sri Lankan Food Act and regulations. For that one, you can select 1 or 2 food regulations and go through the regulation and write a report. And assignment 2, prepare a newspaper article. It means, as I explained earlier, there are so many food safety issues are available and reporting. So you all have to select one incident and write a newspaper article. The third one, brief online presentation. It means, as I told you in assignment 1, then you can select one regulations. There are around 20, 30 regulations in Sri Lanka, functioning in Sri Lanka. So you can select one regulation out of those 20 or 30, then you can study this regulation and present it with your own example. And the final one is designing a food label. We are going to talk about food labeling and how to design a label. There are so many laws and regulations in designing food labels. So ultimately you will be able to design a food label correctly. So those are the assignments I am going to give you, and we will be discussing these areas. First of all, introduction and importance of food laws and regulations. Then food laws and regulations which functioning in Sri Lanka, and Food Act. Have you ever heard this word, Food Act? Well, I will explain. Food Act and amendments are there, and SLSI standards. I think it's very common term, Sri Lanka Standard Institution. It is actually the standardizing body in Sri Lanka. It's a government body functioning in Sri Lanka. It's available in Narayanpet, Colombo. And what are the international regulatory bodies? You may heard about ISO and WHO standards, and there are so many international regulatory bodies are available, which we have to follow before starting a food industry or before working on food. And application of food laws and regulation in an industrial level, so it is important, and food advisory committee and other responsible organizations and persons. All these things are very important. So therefore, if you have any question, any doubt, please raise hand and ask your question. That's my advice. Okay. Before starting this, before moving to the lecture, I'm going to ask a question from you. So you all have to answer this question. Now you are doing food technology. So what is your objective? Do you have objective? You may have objective to complete this degree because your parents are, they are looking at you. So you have to complete this degree. That's one objective. So somebody, if you have any objective regarding, I think there are several areas. So after completion of this degree, you can start your own business and you can work with other company. Then government jobs are available, maybe teaching or any government job, and you can go for another country, go to another country. So out of these objectives, out of those examples, if you have any objective, any goal to achieve, let me know. There are very common ways, common paths, as I mentioned, but rest of others, if you have any other new one, could you please let me know that one? I will give you 10 seconds. Let's see your ideas. No ideas. Right. Then when I start my undergraduate in 2010, then I had a dream to start my own business and to be a lecturer in this industry, in this stream. And I had those targets that time, so I worked for that one. Then I have completed my post PhD also and joined this university. And last week I have started my own business. So what I suggest you, because if you can join, sometimes you may join with government industry. So the salary will be around 30,000 to 50,000, right? I think you can understand what I'm saying is. And if you, when you join with a private company, then the salary will be around 50,000. The initial, I'm talking about initial salary. And you can sometimes, if you have a first class with highest GPA, then you will have a chance to join with the staff. Then the salary will be around 200,000 or 250,000. So what happened if you started your own business? Then you can earn a lot. So your ultimate target should be starting your own business. So you can work with a government or private, public or private company, institute, but your ultimate objective should be to start your own business. So I propose you all can think on that, and I wish that you can start that one, because I do lectures for Columbia University and Viva University and other some private institutes. So they all didn't know about these parts. So when I have to explain these things, they all agreed. So I think you all can start your own business rather than having rather than conducting, rather than working institute. Okay, then food. When I ask this question, what is food? I know you all know this definition. And what I wanted to say here, food means for all foods there are processes. But there are some natural foods. But most of the commercial foods, we have to process these things. So if we are going to process food, perhaps it may be a partially processed or fully processed one. So we have to learn food laws and regulation and food safety, because you can't sell, you can't transport, you can't pack, you can't store food items without adhering to the food laws and regulations available in the country as well as in the world. Right. Then give me your comments on these three pictures. The first one, you can see it's a cigarette advertisement, smoking advertisement. But here you can see a dentist. You can see here a dentist is recommending this brand. But this is the right side. You can see a very common picture. You all know this thing. The very famous cricketer is promoting some instant noodles brand. These are two stories, but in the bottom, the bottom you can see there are two pictures. The first one is the advertisement. The second one is the actual one. Then what you also have this experience. We are going to order some foods or fancy items through maybe eBay or Alibaba. Then the advertisement is very beautiful, but the actual is not good. So these things are happening in the food industry. You have this experience. It's a very nutritive, high nutritive food. You can see there are some famous actors and cricketers. They promote some foods, but actually there is no such nutrition. But those some of those foods are not good for the health. And sometimes you can remember one story regarding Milo. Our ex-president, one time he told that Milo contain very high amount of sugar. So that is also my personal view. It is actually a misleading comment. So misleading is also belongs to food laws and regulations. So how to avoid these things? So before starting a food industry, before joining with the food industry, you have to have a thorough knowledge on these things. And the traffic light system is there now, red, white. We have a traffic light system in our country. Then you can see all ready to serve, ready to drink beverages. We can see this color light system, traffic light system on the label. Right. With these examples, now it's time to discuss food control. The lecture series is this module is about food safety and legislation management. So as I told you here, there are two major parts. Sorry, food safety and legislation management. So legislation management, when it comes to legislation management, we have to discuss about food control. I suppose you know this word, controlling, how to control. This is very common word. So food, you know what is food, and you know what is the meaning of control or controlling. So when we discuss it, those two words together, food controlling, then it is a new one. So the food controlling means to control the possible hazards. Hazard means accidents or some safety issues. So according to this FAO, you know, Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, according to them, food controlling is defined as a mandatory regulatory activity. Mandatory means it is critical. We have to follow these things. Mandatory regulatory activity, enforcement by national or local authorities to provide consumer protection. This is very important. Consumer protection is a very critical, very important one. But when we consider it about when you considering on the issues happening in the Sri Lanka and other countries, as an example, this aflatoxin issue in coconut oil. So, how do you feel? Will they provide consumer protection for us or not? And ensure that all food during production, handling, storage, processing, and distribution. There are 5 stages: production, handling, storage, processing, and distribution. So these 5 stages are very important. So for almost all the food industries, we have to follow these. We have to pay our attention on these 5 stages. Also, and fit for human consumption, conform to safety and quality requirements, and are honestly and accurately labeled as prescribed by law. There are laws, there is a act, and there are amendments, and they have the meaning of law. So there is a law for food, So we have to follow the food. The ultimate target should be provide consumer protection and produce safe food. And there are 5 critical main stages from raw material to stores. There are 5 stages. We have to strictly adhere to the laws and regulations prescribed by the law. Understood? Right. Then this is very important. National Food Control System in Sri Lanka. Now you know what is food controlling, what is the definition, and you do not need to remember the definition. So, but this is very important. Then we have a food control system in Sri Lanka. We call it as Central Food Control Administration. And there are 5 wings, right? We have a national food control system in Sri Lanka. For what? To provide safe foods. Right? As I explained earlier, ultimate objective to provide safe foods, protect our consumers. So for that one, we have a Central Food Control Administration System. We call it as National Food Control System. So both are similar. For that one, there are 5 wings. There are 5 pillars. Right? The first one is analytical service. The second one is regional or peripheral food control administration. Third one is food advisory committee. Then food authority for imports. You know, you may heard the custom. Custom means they inspect all the imports and exports. So there also we have a wing, food authority for imports. DG Custom, Director General of Custom is the responsible person. And food authority for excisable foods, Commissioner of Excise. What is the excise? Excisable foods means belongs to alcohol. Commissioner of Excise කියන්නේ alcohol සම්බන්ධ වෙන්න ලංකාවේ ප්‍රධානියා. He also belongs to Central Food Control System. So there are, as I explained earlier, there are 5 wings. So with these 5 wings, in this National Food Control Administration unit consists with these 5 wings, and they cover all the all the parts, all the units. And under analytical services, if we have issue, food issue, so I think you can remember the aflatoxin issue. Then what happened? We sent the samples to laboratories, but we can't send those samples to external laboratories, but we have 7 laboratories. Therefore, we have to, if we have an issue, we have to send our samples to these laboratories. So to these laboratories, we can't send these samples to outside laboratories. So there are 7 laboratories. Government analyst or approved analyst. Government analyst means Rajya Rasa Parikshaka. It's very common. So it's also a lab. And Medical Research Institute, it is also very common these days due to COVID, right? And there are food labs in Anuradhapura, Kalutara, Kurunagala, Kandy and Colombo. MC means Municipal Council. These laboratories are governing under the Municipal Council. So, what I wanted to explain here is the Central Food Control Administration unit consists with 5 wings, and we have 7 laboratories, government laboratories. So if we have any issue, imports, exports, and local production, if we have any issue, we have to send the samples to one of those laboratories. Right? Another? Induvari Edrising. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Then, regional or peripheral food control administration. So I did this lecture for your seniors, two senior batches, but at that time I have no such example. But now you all know, Medical Research Institute and PHI, MOH with this COVID issue, we all know these institutes. So it's very easy to explain, right? Okay. Then let me discuss about regional and peripheral food control administration units. It means MOH, PHI, food and FDIs. Likewise, we have regional units. It means we have a central food control system as we discussed. Under that one, we have a different regional control systems. So in your area, maybe Colombo, there is a municipal council. In the municipal council, we have a laboratory and we have PHIs, and we have food and drug inspectors. In maybe you are from Kandy, then Kandy area also you have this type of responsible people and institutes. Maybe Pradesh Sabha, maybe local governments, it means Pradesh Sabha, MOH office, and assistant government agents, deputy provincial directors, likewise. They also belong to this central food control administrative system. And food advisory committee. We will discuss the food advisory committee later, and this is very important. And food authority for imports is, as I explained earlier, DG Custom, Director General of Customs. He is the responsible. He's the responsible officer for this Central Food Control Administration. For all the imports and exports, DG is there. So we can't import and export any food item without having permission from the Food Control Administration, and they have to follow, they have to adhere to the national and international regulations. So we can't export. Sometimes, if you have friends in Australia or New Zealand like countries, so you can't take processed foods for those countries. Likewise, there are different legal systems, so you have to adhere. It belongs to customs officers, DG customs, and you can't take, the boys, that you can't take the maximum amount of alcohol you can take from the airport, Sri Lanka is 2.5 liters, 2.5 bottles. You can't take more than that one. So there are laws and regulations. And when you are traveling some country to Sri Lanka, then you can't take cigarettes. There is a law. But if you are traveling from Sri Lanka to another country, you can buy cigarettes from Sri Lanka airports. So likewise, there are different laws and regulations available. So you will be able to observe and challenge. Sometimes you can challenge those laws and regulations. And excisable foods, I have explained these things. The excisable foods, alcohol-based food products, the wine, beer, whiskey, brandy. So for that one, in Sri Lanka, the maximum alcohol percentage you can't. Sometimes we have only liquor shops, but we have no liquors in supermarkets. But other countries, they have liquor in supermarkets. So it's very easy to buy a whiskey or brandy from supermarket. But in Sri Lanka, it is very difficult. We have to go to a bar. So likewise, there are different systems in our country. So I think it's clear we have 5 wings in national food control system. If you have any issue regarding the alcohol percentage, regarding aflatoxin, regarding a label, for all these things, we have to send the samples to those laboratories, and based on the lab reports generated by these laboratories, we can go to the court. If not, we can't go. Okay. We will discuss the procedures later. So this is a general introduction. And here you can see the differences in between laws and regulations. So laws means it is a bill process. Parliament or then we can't make laws. So we have to send. There is a procedure. We have to send the bill through the parliament, and then after getting their approval, then it converts into a law. And regulations, but we can develop regulations based on these laws. For example, we have a law for traffic control. Traffic control for that one, we have different regulations. 1 or 2 law. To control that law, we have sets of regulations. We can't overtake on pedestrian crossing. And there are some traffic light systems on pedestrian crossings. And you can't stop on pedestrian crossing. Likewise, we have sets of regulations, but the law is traffic control. In the food, when it comes to food industry also, we have laws. We have an act called as Food Act. Under these food acts, there are laws and regulations. So if it is a regulation, the objective is of these regulations to maintain the hygienic practices from production, preparation, processing, transportation, and storage and distribution. For all these stages, it means the entire life cycle of food products. Life cycle means raw material to final product. So we have to follow the regulations and laws. Establish food standards. We have standards. We will discuss these things later. What are the standards? Prescribe safe condition of use of food additives, pesticide and irradiation of foods. There are some laws. Require informative labeling. It's very important. How to develop the label. An objective of the Sri Lanka food control system, I think we have discussed these things, so you can read when you are free. I'm not going to explain. This is about the Food Act. As I told you earlier, we have Food Act, but unfortunately, it was written in 1980, and we have another amendments now. According to this Food Act, you can understand the Minister of Health, he is the highest head person, and then Food Advisory Committee is there. Under the Food Advisory Committee, there are some subcommittees, and the Chief Food Authority is the Health DG, Director General of Health. He is the Chief Food Authority. Then there are some food authorities, as we discussed, regional and peripheral authorities, MOH, local government. Likewise, we have food authorities and officers. Then they, they examine, inspect foods and get samples and seizing. Then minister will seize karani. He is not going to seize this one. So there is a system. Minister of Health, he is the top person here, and then Food Advisory Committee is there, and there are subcommittees. And under the Food Advisory Committee, the Chief Food Authority is the head of this Food Advisory Committee. Chief Food Authority means Director General of Health. So, General Tamai make a chairman. Then there are some food authorities, and as we explained, then you know that approved analysts are there, and they report after the authorized officers send samples to these laboratories, they generate reports. Based on these reports, we can get the legal action, legal procedure. So this is the process. You can see the PHI, MOH, food and drug inspectors, they take samples from your from the market and any place, and they directly send the sample to the approved laboratories and get the reports and take legal actions based on these reports. That is the system. So food advisory committee is very important. Here you can see the members of food advisory committee. You also can join this food advisory committee. So carefully listen and see how to join food advisory committee. Then who is the chairman? Director General of Health. As I explained earlier, Saukya Daksha General, Director General of Health. He is the chairman of this committee. And secretary is the Director of Environmental and Occupational Health. You know, the secretaries of this committee, automatically he or she may be is the Director of Environmental and Occupational Health. And government analyst, he is a member. Government analyst means Praja Rasa Parikshaka. Then city analyst of Colombo Municipal Council. He is the city analyst means Nagarika Rasa Parikshaka. He is now Dr. Rajanayaka. He is the city analyst of Colombo Municipal Council. He will join with us for our in the future for some lectures. And Director General of Customs, you know, he is also a member. And Chief Medical Officer of Health of the Colombo Municipal Council, Colombo Araga Sabhave, Pradhana Vaidya Niladhari. Nowadays, you can see this the Chief Medical Officer. He is always talk to the medias regarding COVID issues. And representative from Ministry of Food, representative from Ministry of Trade, representative from Ministry of Local Government, and representative from Sri Lanka Standard Institution, SLSI. These are the members. And nutrition is from MRI, Medical Research Institute. Food technologist. So it means you can join. There is a chance. And experts in food science or food technology, there are two vacancies. Experts mean industrial people. They can join. Representative for commercial interest and industrial representatives, consumers, and chief food and drug inspector. So these are the members of food advisory committee. So you can join as food technologist and a nutritionist and expert in the field of food science and also industrial representative and also a consumer. You also join with the committee later. Right? I think it's clear. This is very, very, very important. What is food advisory committee and who is the chairman of that committee? So it is very important. Now you can read. I'm not going to explain the differences between laws and regulations, so you can read these things and ethics. You can read these things. Then what are the similarities of laws and regulations? You can read these things also, differences. I think you can read these things. So this is about history. I'm not going to explain history. And Codex Alimentarius Commission. This is again very important one. Do not pay your attention here, but I will explain about Codex Alimentarius Commission later. We are going to discuss international bodies. Under that topic, we will discuss the Codex Alimentarius Commission. What is the Codex Alimentarius? Who are the members? Likewise. Here you can see the history of Sri Lankan food laws and regulation system from 1862. But we have established our Food Act in 1980, and there are two other amendments for that Food Act, 1991 and 2011. So we have Food Act, which is established in 1980, and there are 2 amendments. And you can download Food Acts and Regulations from this link. This is the front page of Food Act. You can download this document and read. There are 7 areas in the Food Act. So we have discussed on the Food Act was established in 1980. There are 2 amendments. And in this Food Act, it has explained 5 areas: manufacturing, how to manufacture foods, and what type of laws and regulations we have to follow. And when we advertise foods, you can see there are advertisements and labels. So when we are advertising food, how to do that one. And selling, if we are going to sell foods, you know that we have to cover these things, and we have to put the price. So likewise, selling and storage and distribution. You know, the safety regulations are there. Under the Food Act, you can see there are several regulations for food storage and distribution. And importation, we have discussed these things. Before imports, we have to, somebody, the agent he or she has to send samples to the relevant laboratory. Then based on the reports on that sample, we can import. So how to do these things, we can read from this act. And seizing means, you know, seize කරනවා කියන්නේ ඔයගොල්ලෝ දන්නවනේ කොහොමද වටලන්නේ සිංහලෙන් කියනවනේ කොහොමද how to take legal actions based on these foods and labeling regulation, how to develop a label. So likewise, there are 7 areas. All these areas as covered by the Sri Lanka Food Act. So if you are going to work in any industry, you belongs to one of these or sets of these areas. So therefore, it is very important to read and remember, not need to remember, but you have to read the Food Act carefully and understand the situation. And the main functions of the Sri Lanka Food Act to prevent contamination and prevention of manufacturing, selling unhygienic or unsafe foods. So you know the objectives. The main objective of these documents of this Food Act is to protect consumer. Our system game objective is to protect consumer, consumer and to stop and to control food fraud. So how we can food sambandha thiyana වැරදි දේවල් නැවැත්වීම තමයි මේකේ main objective. So I'm going to stop from this slide today. So I think it's very clear to you why is it important. And today we have discussed about the National Food Control System, and there were several discussions, definitions. So under the National Food Control System, there are 5 wings. And what are the differences in between laws and regulations, and how the National Food Control System is working, how is it work, and the members of Food Advisory Committee. Then there are several members representing all the areas related to food, and ethics and the similarities and differences, and the history about Sri Lankan food control system, and how to download these acts and regulations. And we have Food Act, which was established in 1980, and under this Food Act, they have it explained about 7 areas and the objectives. So we have discussed these things today, and I suppose you all understood it very well, and we will discuss the other slides and the rest areas next week. So now it's time to ask questions. If you have any question, I'm ready to answer. If not, I can stop this lecture because I have to participate with the faculty board. So if you have question, I will give you 10 to 20 seconds, then you can ask. It seems no questions needed. Right.